Good morning, our panelists and everyone here. I am Dr. Abba Danladi of B308 University, and I'm studying in for my friend Balishi here, who has a meeting. So this panel is titled Reincarnation, Rethinking Religion and Culture in Global Africa, Part 3. And we have three panel members, but for now, only two are actually here. So the good thing is that we have a lot of time, to give the presenters to share their thoughts with us. And then we'll have more time also to ask questions. I think the essence of the whole thing is to learn, to benefit from the research that they are conducting. And so I would like to start with, just follow it as it is here. It's obvious that Okaya Balaka is not here. So we'll go on and then start with Ohihon Ibosin. Is it Igboin or, I'm sorry, Igboin, right? And Igalaman always finds it. Yeah. So please, Igboin, the title of his paper is Hell is Here and Here is Hell, an appraisal of afterlife in Edo religious thought. So, Benson, please, you have the floor. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. I just want to know how many minutes I have so that I can organize my thoughts.
Yes. You have 20 minutes.
Oh, that's fine. Yeah, thank you, Chair, and the other panelists and the audience. As it has been introduced, my title is Hell is Here and Here is Hell, an appraisal of afterlife in Edo religious thought. This research revolves around the concept of afterlife, in contrast with the Islamic and Christian perspective of heaven and hell that are located somewhere outside the here and now. In other words, the Christians, the Muslims have the concept of heaven or paradise, hell, that are located outside this world. But amongst the Edo, and particularly among the Iuleha, wherein we work with, we discovered that hell is not outside of this present existence. Afterlife is not essentially outside this present existence. And so we try as much as possible to understand how that belief has become very common amongst them and how that has also helped them to understand the meaning of life and to live within the existential challenges that they face daily. And so the very first thing is to contrast the concept of afterlife from among the Oma of Edo State with that of Christian and Islamic theological perspectives that have unfortunately surfaced as along in the geography of the Owan people of Edo State. We used two methodologies. I had to embark on ethnographic fieldwork to elicit data. Did some interview with 4 elderly men, the least of which is 92 years age. And so the fieldwork is still ongoing. And we also have literature which we contrast. And one of the things that I have to quickly say is that scholars like Ihidero, who have worked on this area, have argued that there is a cosmic force that underlines the concept of hell among the Edo people. And the emerging fact that we are getting is contrary to such an argument. And the argument is that, my argument is that there is no cosmic force that is underlying or that is pursuing or executing that belief. It is the ancestral spirits that are responsible for the enforcement of what hell contains. And the primary question we asked, that we look at, the concept we looked at, has to do with what is called Arialusi. Arialusi. Arialusi is a compound word, aria, which means past. Lucy means actions, especially evil, criminal actions that one had committed. So since aria has to do with the past generations, and Lucy has to do with evil actions that someone had committed. So the belief in Arialusi, therefore brings out the concept of hell is here. And how does it work? It is like this, that when somebody commits crimes or sins, especially the most heinous sin that we looked at, that my data is suggesting, has to do with murder, abortion, deliberate abortion, murder of any member of the society. Such punishment that attached to such murder is death. And if that person escapes death, and when he dies, he has to come back to this present world. So when he comes back, he has not paid, he or she had not sufficiently paid the price, the punishment of the crime committed in his or her previous existence. In this present existence, the punishment must continue. First and foremost, if he's exiled or he ran away from the community and he died wherever he had escaped to, and he reincarnates, he comes back to this world, he continues the suffering. And so when that person continues this, or there is nothing that that person touches, this is where existential challenges come in. There is nothing that person does that prospers. And since prosperity is the height of life among the traditional African people, prosperity in terms of children, prosperity in terms of economic work, prosperity in terms of anything you do, there is prosperity, there is peace, there is also what? There is also reproduction. And so because of the actions, the sins committed in the previous existence, when somebody now reincarnates, he continues with the punishment that of the sin he had committed in his previous existence. And so the manifestation, how do they know? How do the people know that somebody had committed Arialusi? It majorly from two perspectives. One, there is this precocious sense that the person has this sense that he had committed something in his previous existence. Some of them say it out. So some of them are also discovered through by playing Oracle. So that this person has been working, he's not making any success, no headway in life. So they consult to know why that person is not making headway. So either way, whether the person knew who had reincarnated, it is discovered through Oracle. There is something that is important. What is important is that how does the person pay fully for that crime he committed in the last existence and have a new life? New life in the sense that he begins to work, he begins to enjoy the fruit of his labor, or he begins to reproduce in this present life. And so that is where the ritual comes in. Rituals are prescribed for sins, for propitiation, depending on the magnitude of sin that the person committed in his or her previous existence. And so, if it is murder, for instance, that the person murdered an individual in his past existence, So there are ritual sacrifices that are expected to be carried out in the forest. And so a priest is always meant with a priest who listed those things that needed to be used for the propitiation process rituals, so that the person's sins would be, forgiven and propitiated. But my argument is this, that whereas in Christian and Islamic concepts of hell, there is no redemption, there is no forgiveness, there is no turning. So it is a linear, punitive process that once you enter hell, in somewhere, wherever it is, that person continues to suffer and to suffer. There is no redemption. Whereas in the concept of Arialusi among the Edo people of Nigeria, there is a concept of redemption from hell. There is a concept of redemption of hell. There is a concept that when someone who is already in hell in reincarnated form, who has now acknowledged, who has now been forgiven, whose sins have been propitiated through rituals, we now have redemption. We have a liberation from the consequences of the crime he had earlier committed in his previous existence. This is the emerging discovery and the emerging difference that we are pursuing between the Christian concept of hell and Islamic concept of hell. So why is this redemption important to the Edo religious people? It is that, according to their theology, that God who created the universe is not just a God of forgiveness, of mercy. Is a God who also, after someone must have realized his or her sin, whether in the present existence or in the next existence, he forgives when the appropriate sacrifices or rituals are carried out. So rituals play an important role in the redemption. So hell, therefore, as I conclude, hell, therefore, is not a place for permanent suffering. It's not a place for everlasting suffering. It is a place of punishment, and that someone who has been consigned to hell and he or she realizes his or herself, acknowledges the sin he or she had committed in the previous existence, carried out rituals to appease the ancestors, the spirits that are enforcing such punishment, that person could be redeemed, and the life of that person could now be reordered in this present existence, and so he will continue with his life in a prosperous way. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you. Thank you so much for keeping to time and the quite electrifying insights you're giving us here. So we'll quickly move to the next person. Please you can keep your questions, your comments, you know them. Then after the second presenter, we'll just take the questions and comment at once. Thank you.
Can I go ahead?
Yes, please.
Okay.
The second, sorry, let me introduce you. So the second presenter is Lucky Amarachiku, right? I don't it. Oh, no. So his paper is titled Signs and Symbols of Reincarnation. Is cultural exploration of Chimamanda Adichie's. Thank you.
Okay. Good morning, organizer and chair.
Morning, Reverend Lucky.
Thank you. Okay. So my topic, as he has introduced, is on the signs and symbols of reincarnation. And I'll be using a literary text to explore this stuff. Now, when we do science and symbol, when we study it scientifically, we are within the domain of semiotics. So semiotics simply is the study of science and symbol. But in the course of trying to do it, and I noticed that reincarnation is also a sign, it's also a symbol, like what the last presenter, I could do a lot of things with it through semiotics. So I went in further study and noticed that there's what is called cultural semiotics or semiocultural analysis. So I decided to look at reincarnation from that point of view. It will really help us also to explain culture critically. For instance, if you ask a little child, what is culture? You say culture is a way of life of a group of people. Good, fantastic. That means there is a collective nature of any culture through socialization. Now, this collectiveness also builds a distinct memory. So there's a memory I have if I'm from that culture. There's a memory in my heart. If you are from same culture, we share together. But the problem here is that this memory is non-genetic memory. It's non-genetic memory. That means it dissuades the notion that culture is inherited. Instead, we say that culture is promoted through socialization. So it's not an inherited thing. So that means as we go further, I will also argue that culture is not just something we inherit. No, it's through a process. It's through a process. And also it helps to build how we construct the reality. A reality is being constructed on that particular aspect. Okay. So we dissuade the notion that culture is inherited and rather promotes it through socialization, since there is exchange of information that is based on symbol. So if we see culture from the dimension of memory, we should not limit it to the content of memory, but look at it from the process by which the memory is constructed from the information gathered, exchanged, and kept. Okay, let me speed up because of our time. Now, with this explanation, for the semiotician is somebody that does semiotic analysis. When he's studying cultural activities, he sees an item, he sees any item or deed that is evocative to an individual within a cultural group as a symbol. So anything that evokes, that is evocative to the individual, in cultural activity, he sees it as a symbol. And this is part of the background to my study. Also, the semiotician would attempt to recognize rules or convention of codes that are concealed as they attempt to find the meanings of these codes within the culture. So another aspect is that these codes, these symbols, they are concealed. They're not open. So part of his work is to try to decipher, to bring out the meaning of that code. Also, we must note that the realization of this convention of codes, the connection between them, and the circumstances in which they are pertinent is an expression that one belongs to a particular culture. So when we study all these things, we are pushing that this person belongs to this culture. This person does not belong to this culture. Okay. Now, the thrust of what we are doing, this particular symbol, is reincarnation. That is a symbol. And I like what my little brother have said, but for the Igbo traditional religion or Igbo traditions, it has also, it has a general notion, but also have a particular notion when it comes to it. I will not stress all because there are more people in religion. I will just pick the side that my area of study wants to talk about. So for that one, reincarnation is a situation where a deceased person inhabits a discarnate realm, eager to return to a new terrestrial life. Also, this is achieved as they try to recognize the reincarnated forebears through one, birthmark, two, statements the children make when they start talking, three, behavioral similarity between that child and probably the deceased this thing. So this will be my frame of reference, not there's Obanje, as you know what else, all that we have. Okay. So the code of reincarnation is employed to account for why a group of people explains reality from the frame as they habitually use it. It goes ahead to account for the construction of this reality, the construction of that reality. Let's speed up. What is cultural semiotics? I've already started explaining what it means. It stems from the school of thought of what we call the Moscow Tattoo School of Semiotics. The proponent is Yuri Lotman, it's a Russian. That's their school of thought, which also have bearing with structuralism, Abraham de Saussure and the rest of them. And for them, they see it from the social point of view. That, like I explained before, that is a symbol. Culture has symbols in them, signs, symbols that point to them. And to uncover the indispensable features of culture, as the study is not just an attempt to engage in just academic prowess. For instance, Taylor defined it as 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 symbols which is the representation structure of human beings, as symbols which represented culture of human beings. So when we talk about cultural semiotics, we engage it through semiotics, we proceed to the cultural process that all its assumption, why doing it within the ambient of the cultural world. The semiotician treats things like television, image, text, in this our context now, reincarnation, as a symbol, which means it carries information that needs to be unraveled and scrutinized to understand its meaning. This means for a semiotician, every cultural venture leaves a hint of meaning. So anything anybody does leaves a what? A hint of meaning. So like I said, it was this Yuri Lotzman intervention of semiotic approach that insists the study of culture that does not distinguish codes from text, but seeks to elicit information which is encoded in a fluid semiotic condition where meaning can be drawn. Okay, then coming to reincarnation, it's important I stress some points from here because it is through these points that we can use to look at it critically. My concern is on the Igbo traditional stuff. And I've raised 3 other points that are critical. Part of Igbo's belief is that one must continue to improve one's social status, since social status is a very important, is very significant among the Igbo. Let me explain. For the Igbo, we always want to improve socially. That's what is called Ogaranya. That is a big man to improve all the time. The person doesn't improve in this life, the tendency is that you would want to improve in the next life. So several things might happen. Might approach his chief. The chief is a, how would I put it now? A personal God that directs him and negotiate that, you see, now I'm not good here, but if I'm going to the next life, I would want to have, an improved life. So that quest for a better social status usually drives this aspect. So what happens is that when a child is born, because my concern is that when a child is born, they start looking out for these aspects on him. One, they look out for, what is this, does he talk like this ancestor? Number 2, his behavior, his interaction, does he behave like this ancestor? Those are the things they look at. Also, if maybe the parent of the child that is born sees probably these signs and symbols within it, names also is very, very critical. It's very, very critical. So the name he gives to that child will also aid in, the advancement of this whole stuff. Now, for this work, I used 2 theories. One is Lotman's semiosphere, and also what I call subjective interpretation, which is the Thomas theorem. Yes. For the Lotman semiosphere, we have three elements. One is the core, two is the periphery, and three is the boundary. Semiosphere means that every semiotic analysis or every semiosphere happens in a space within a space. So these three elements are very critical. And since we want to look at how this reality is being constructed, we have to, that was why I added the second theory, subjective interpretation, or the Thomas theory, which says that, excuse me, which says that that people's behavior is actually molded by subjective interpretation of things instead of its objective reality. Therefore, people do see things, people and circumstance as real, and also see the subsequent effect and result as real. For instance, we continue to tell a young woman, maybe this my sister, and say her that you are very brilliant. She might interpret it to be her real character attribute. Clearly, this was not objectively part of her real personality. She would start acting that way. So that's the essence of it. Now, in the analysis, before the analysis, the work I used is a collection of short stories by Chimamanda Adichie. I had to use just one of the story there, The Strong-Haired Historian. In that story, we saw a woman, Wamba is her name. She married to a very wealthy man, but the wealthy man had two cousins that were jealous of him. And she suspected that they were the ones that killed him. So when they killed him, well, luckily for her, she was, after several miscarriages, she was able to give birth to a child. When they killed him, there was this struggle that they would also take over from everything, which they actually did. They took his ivory ivory stone that shows modes of authority. They even wanted to take his land, and despite warning from age groups, elders, the president. So he needed somebody to fight for her. He needed somebody to, stand up and speak for her. This led her to push her child, that her only child, and to when the British came to school with them. But it happened and the one letter switched and became a cactus due to the whole thing. So, but she didn't throw away hope. In the course, and the one finally got married and gave birth to a child called Nnamdi. Now, when she held in Nnamdi, she felt that in this work, she said, this one is Obiedika, he has come back to me. But in the course of feeding him, playing and singing, Nnamdi was not responded. She now knew in her spirit that she was not feeling the spirit of Obiedika. Which shows that she looked at the behavior of the child. That's what we call the core. The core is the constant feature in semiotic analysis. It doesn't shift. It dominates everything. So that behavior, that ability not to see the spirit of Obiedika in the child is the core. It's not moving. It overshadows every aspect of the element, both periphery. It overshadows it. Then another aspect is that later on, the child also, please, my time is up, you let me know. Later on, he also gave birth to another child, which is a girl. And looking at that one, he saw the way the child responded, the way the child responded to her. Now knew that Obiedika has come up. But what was odd was that he came as a girl, not as a man would be. It's also part of the issue I raised in my book when describing reincarnation. He came back as a and particular girl to be to be sure of what she said, went on to really live out that life that she expected. We saw it in the struggle when she wanted to die and the child was writing the exam. She was restless, insisting that she don't want to see anybody except that child comes back. The child writing the exam was also restless and came back just to meet the grandmother, to meet her when she was dying on her dying bed. One aspect now is under this semiotic analysis, the semiosphere is the periphery. The periphery is usually internal, is dynamic. The core is not dynamic, it's static. It's just like that. These are the features you cannot shift on it. But the periphery is internal, but it can adjust, its dynamic. And the only place we could see that dynamism is being able to notice that Nnamdi is not the one but that this girl is the one. And this internal thing that is happening is so fluid that is just based on her. That's outside. They are not aware of what is happening. Then the last one is the core, the boundary. The boundary. In reincarnation, as any other feature of semiocultural analysis, there must be a boundary. There must be what a boundary that you must set. For me, from the analysis, the boundary is one man's belief, her core belief that the husband, the spirit of the husband, will be reborn. Her strong and firm belief that no matter what, things will be done that way. So that belief also translated to her granddaughter, who was studying chemistry, but later switched to history, who had this burden for, to stop external influence because she felt that the interpretation they were giving to the culture of her people was wrong. It made her to switch and made her a very distinguished scholar in history at the University College Ibadan. Now, coming to it, how were they able to build that construction of that reality? It was subjective. It's not real from my definition of culture. It's subjective. It's not real. But I think that idea, that stress for hope really poured on and created a reality. And not just was with one but translated to her granddaughter. So in conclusion, cultural semiotics is very, very essential. It helps build, more about the culture and help the person to know that you belong to this culture. Clarify. And we might say reincarnation as a theme is no longer in existence due to globalization and education, Christianity, religion, and the rest of them. But we see from the short story, we see pockets of this stuff. Yes, she that's why she's educated. She still believes in that. The granddaughter still believes in that aspect of her culture. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. So we now through the floor is now open to all of us here. To if you have a question or a comment to any of them, I must say that actually this to me is how it should be. Conference presentation should be a place for people to make their points. What is the point if you cannot make a point? So we have a lot of time. We have like 1 hour more or 40 something minutes. So if you have a question or comment, please feel free.
Does anybody have a question?
Okay.
Yes, I want to ask a question. Okay.
So 1, 2, 3, 4.
Okay.
5.
So first of all, I would want to commend the efforts of the presenters. My question is for the presentation on hell is here and here is hell. You made mention of the fact that there's a word I'm trying to think about. Arialusi. Arialusi, yeah. Yeah, so it's peculiar to the people in Edo, if I understand you clearly, and the Christian religion and the Muslim religion do not believe that there's no redemption for a person after death. So my question is this: what happens to an Edo person? So if the Arialusi applies to an Edo person, right? If the Edo person is either a Christian or Muslim, when the person dies, does the Arialusi apply to the person? Let me rephrase that question. Maybe you understand it better. For example, an Edo person is a Christian. An Edo person is a Christian. According to that person's Christian beliefs, there is no redemption for that person after death. But as an Edo person, does the Arialusi apply to him when the person reincarnates? Is there redemption for that person? How does religion play a part in the Arialusi? I don't know if you understand the question clearly.
Yeah, I got it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
I arrived late into the hall, but one thing I got in their analysis is that there's redemption in hell, if I got you right. That captured my fancy, and I said, we in the Christendom, they believe in redemption in hell. And normally, in the Christendom, once you are in hell, from hell you are taken to a place we call purgatory. It's in that purgatory that our sins are cleansed, and you are found worthy, then you go to heaven. So, but you are telling us that in hell, that there's redemption. I don't know how you reconcile this.
Comments before you go to another question on your own question. So that people will share.
Yes, I want to finish my own, and then so that then on the man that the man that what do you call him? Yeah, Onebune Amarachiku. I want to make there's something that I didn't hear in that you are in that you are reincarnation. In Igbo land, there is named in terms of reincarnation. If somebody have died and you believe that somebody has born after him and that he has replaced that person that died, there's a name that are names that are attached to it. I hope you don't understand what I'm saying. Eh? For instance, Onochi, Nana. There are names that are attached in reincarnation. Wherever somebody, a woman gives birth, maybe either the husband died or the son or the other, and the name is given to it. That's what the comment I want to make here. Thank you.
Thank you very much. My name is Olani Retipalade. Good afternoon, Professor Egoin.
Good afternoon.
Regarding your presentation, you made a comment on the punishment being melted out to people who commit crime within the Edo society, the particular community you mentioned. And you said in the process of being punished for the crime, for example, let's say, for example, probably the person was punished for committing murder. And you said if the person should die, the person then must, it is expected that the person reincarnates to the present. I think that was what you said, that the person reincarnates to the present to continue the punishment. Now, my question is this: how is the society able to identify that this child, because if I'm talking about reincarnation, then definitely it seems being reborn. Then how does the society identify that particular child as the person who was serving a punishment, probably being banned from society, now reborn into that same society? That is my question. For such a situation where the child that has been bound, the person that has been banned for committing a crime, is now reincarnated into the same society. Now, how does the person continue the punishment? Is it that child, if the society has a way of identifying the child as the person that committed the previous crime, is that the child is made to continue the punishment or what? That is my question. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Yeah,
that's true. Okay. First, I want to say thank you for the privilege given to me to ask this question. I think my question will be directed to, I think the last speaker. All right, now this is my question. The philosophy, the myth, and the cultural reality or practice of reincarnation, or the belief of reincarnation, and the legacy. Which part of cultural semiotics represent any of these? And are there any proofs, or how do we judge that any of these can be inherited or not inherited? Are there differences between the philosophies, the myths, the legacies, and the belief itself in reincarnation? So if there are, what are the contradistinctions, and how do we use semiotics or cultural semiotics to sort them into their various classes or differences?
Yes, thank you. Please permit me even as a moderator to ask questions. I must say that I love the two presentations. I like the issues you are engaging. The first one also resonates with what I've been thinking about my people. Is also what I see here. The idea about life after death, and that if people die in traditional African society, we tend to think that it is the same place that they will end. Uh, so if I want to ask Professor Benson, uh, so from your presentation, the idea of paradise there, exists among the Onwa people, because among the Igalas, when people die, there's this belief that the paradise is not in heaven as you have it in Christianity or Islam, and that is why we continue. They believe that as they die, sacrifices must be made for them through Ifi. You must buy cow. You must do some certain rituals, to accompany the burial and the funeral. So if these funerals are not well conducted, there might be repercussion here. And even after the completion of these funerals and everything, it's expected that every traditional festival, you must slaughter some goats and all those things, the Begu festival, to entertain and appease the ancestors, those who have died. And it is also believed that if you don't do this, there are repercussions, for it. So I'm trying to understand, is it the same with the Onwa people? Because, what I'm trying to get from the Aralusi issue is that, there's uh, redemption. Hell is not, and this hell you are talking about, is it in heaven, or is here on earth? Because among the Igala people, the idea, the religious thought system is that it is here. If you do bad thing, you pay for it. The ancestors, like a woman, you commit adultery, you do some certain sacrificial act, you pay for it here, and not necessarily, there. So that's what I want to know. And what happens when one is a believer, in this, and then the children are Christians? How do one, how do one reconcile this? Are there tensions? Because in my place it happens. One is, if your father is a traditionalist, the children, some are pastors and Pentecostal pastors. The man says if he dies, he should be buried like this. If not, he will come back and deal with them ruthlessly, if he's not properly buried. Then some of the children will say, no, we are not going to do that because I'm a pastor in the Pentecostal church. I have seen that kind of tension. So I don't know how it's playing out in the Onwa people. So it's something I would like to know. And lastly, to you, I'm also studying cultural borrowing between the Igala and the Igbos. So, and I find what you are studying very interesting. I'm also recently looking at Biafra and um, race, as a site of violent contestation between the states and the Biafra people, using the Timothy Lago, recent Odile, and then the Darago. Because to me, it's also a contestation over symbolic representation and how those things are appropriated. So, and I also think that culture could also be intangible. It doesn't necessarily need to be thing. Yes, I don't know. So subjectivity, some norms could be subjective, but it is what the people believe. And so people believe, who are we to question our, so what I want to ask is, what if, are there some, are they reincarnation? Do they live and have control over reincarnation? Like the choices. I will speak from my personal experience. One of my aunties, gave birth to a boy. And before that, the seers, saw that the person who is coming, the baby you are carrying, is a boy. And it is the mother of so and so person in the village who was, her uncle that is coming. And that uncle was very wicked, well known in the clan to be a very wicked man. And the seer told her that the man has said, as he's coming, nobody should insult him. And truly, even today, everybody pampers, but even though people say a lot of bad things about that man, the woman cannot say it in the presence of that boy. So do they live in have control or choices over this reincarnation? But I wouldn't engage that because you examine the text. So it may be out of context because so thank you very much to two of you. So open now for your thank you.
Will you start or should I start?
Okay. I want to thank you for your interventions. They are very interesting. And so it shows that, you listened to my presentation. So I'm so glad for your interventions. So let me start with the second part of your question, moderator. Yeah, whether there are tensions between children who are Christians and traditional person who died during burial. The first thing I want to say is that without the ills or supposed ills and evils of the African religious belief system, Pentecostal Christianity will not flourish in Africa. We just concluded a research grant where it's ended tomorrow on violent prayers in Nigerian Pentecostal churches. And one of the emerging outputs of that research is how African Pentecostalism is killing African ancestors. We collected the violent prayers or spiritual warfare prayers of, if you listen to Mountain on Fire, God Will Do It ministry and all of this that deal with the ancestors, the spirit of the ancestors. Which ancestors? The African ancestors, which means in African Pentecostalism, they believe in the active spirits of the African ancestor are very potent. And so they are very active. So when you see a diseased children who claim that they are pastors, they are Christians, they don't want to go the way of the tradition in burying their deceased fathers, so on and so forth, if you follow the trajectory, you discover that they come back fasting and praying and binding and casting the spirit of their deceased father because they believe that spirit is always with them. The spirit is not resting. They too are not resting. And that is why they are fasting and praying, going to churches from one prophet to the other, going to mountains and casting the spirit. So the spirits are very active. And this is a lived experience. If you go to any of the Pentecostal churches, this is what you find. We just did a 4-year program. We find it there. So the African religious ancestors and the beliefs in reincarnation is very potent in African Pentecostalism. They may preach against it, but after preaching, listen to their prayers. So those spirits are troubling them. They are requesting for proper burial. They are requesting for befitting burial so that their soul will rest. Like my people say, when your father doesn't rest, the children also will not rest. That is what is happening to African Pentecostalism. So there is tension, and it's a spiritual tension, and that spiritual tension and contestation that happens between them takes place in where? In the existential realm, in this terrestrial realm. That's where it's taking place. So there is tension. Then the second thing is the concept of paradise. Where is paradise? Where is hell? Yeah, the point is this. Paradise in African traditional religion is here. And that is why I did a study on the words of the dying among the Owan people. When a dying father, I presented a paper in Usuka 2013, When I Die, the politics of the metaphysics of death in Africa. When I die, a word of the father, bury me in so place. Use this to bury me is, so if any child, especially the first son, if it's a man, or the first daughter, if it's a woman, goes against those words of the dying father or mother, they come back to it. Why do they come back to it? Because the person who is dying is praying to come back. Come back to where? Come back to this world. And so that is where the Professor Innocent, I think Oye went, yeah, I can't pronounce the Igbo name very well, talks about the double existence of the African ancestor. He has reincarnated, he's also venerated elsewhere. So the African ancestor cannot completely leave this present world. He's actively present here. He's also actively present in the afterworld, somewhere else. And so that is why, as an elder, when you want to eat, the first morsel that you caught, you dipped it into the soup, you call the names of the our fathers who art in heaven. Our fathers, take note, not our father, our fathers who art in heaven. So you mention their names and you give them their portion so that you can eat peaceably. If you don't give them their portion, you choke. When you want to drink, you pour libation to them because they are invisibly present with you at this moment. So when you want to drink, if you don't pour libation, they act. They tell you we are here. We are supposed to drink first and foremost. And so that is that retention. So, but the point I want you to understand is this. When we then talk about ancestors who come, ancestors are ancestors, they are ancestors because they lived a socially, morally accredited life while in existence. Everyone who becomes an ancestor must have lived well, must have obeyed the rules and regulations of the community, must have children left behind. Therefore, a murderer, for instance, cannot reincarnate, cannot be venerated as an ancestor because he has breached the morals of the society. This is where the concept of Arialusi comes in. Because the Arialusi person is coming to pay for the sins, not coming to enjoy the life he had lived or she had lived in the previous existence. So the person who is reincarnating as an Arialusi person is coming to continue with the punishment he or she had not sufficiently served in the past existence. How do you then identify an Arialusi person? My sister, it is very, very simple. I have said through two major ways. First and foremost is that you listen to like my colleague, the second presenter said, you listen to the words of these children. They said things that they had done in the previous existence. And as mothers, they take note of such words. They don't play with such words. One of my interlocutors mentioned the young man is a policeman right now. When he took his own father, the young man took his father to a spot in the farm and told the father never ever to harvest his cocoa. And the next time the man went there, he was bitten by a snake. He was taken home. Yes, they took him to the hospital. Nothing. The child said the father should apologize to him. And this was a child of 4 years old child. When the father apologized to him, and that was how he got healed. And so the father had to take permission from his son to go. I'm just telling you about reincarnation and how it works, how you can identify such persons. Number two, since prosperity, social prosperity, biological prosperity, economic prosperity, and peace defines the life of a person. And if person is working and has no progress, you have to play you consult the oracle to know what is behind. the suffering of that person. And so oracle can tell you that this person is an Arialusi. He had committed heinous crime in his past existence that he's still suffering from. And so you can also identify the person through consultation with the oracle. And so once the oracle says this is an Arialusi, the next is how do you then go forth to redeem the person, to liberate the person from the curse and the punishment he or she is suffering from at this level. So the number 2 question that has to do with purgatory. Yeah, in the Catholic Church, purgatory is just in between this world and paradise. What happens there? You believe that there are certain rituals that take place that will make the soul of the person to leave purgatory and go into heaven. Well, the Catholic believe in that, and you know it's a contentious belief in Catholic Church. But whereas in the Owan case, there is no purgatory. There is no purgatory. It is either you pay for your sin, and when you realize it in your next existence, you do what? You propitiate the sin. You make rituals to the ancestors and the spirits that are empowered to carry out the punishment upon the Arialusi person. So when the person acknowledges his sins and confesses to the sins he had committed in the previous existence, and those rituals are taken, appropriated, the person's sins will be forgiven. And so the person in this present existence will now have a reorganized, renewed life. And so those things that had eluded him as a result of punishment for his sin are now forgiven. So he's now redeemed. He's now liberated from the cause of the crime he had committed in this present world. So he can now live a beautiful life, worthy life. And so if he lives in accordance with the rules and regulations, the morals of the community at this existence, when he or she dies, in his next existence, he can now become an ancestor. But at this present point, serving punishment, he is not an ancestor because he was not properly buried. There's difference between proper burial and befitting burial. In Owa, the proper burial are the rituals you carry out on the deceased, especially in Owa by 3 a.m. By 3 a.m., you must make a sacrifice. If it is a man, you use cock, egusi soup, and pounded jam, and you take the heart of that cock and a muscle of that pounded jam, you touch the tongue of the deceased. And if that is not done, whatever you do outside, that is befitting burial. That is what people see. If you do not carry out that proper rituals in the night, the person cannot become an ancestor. If you bury the person, you will come back to do the burial. So it is not the clothes you carry or the musician you do or the money you spend for socials. That proper burial contains the ritual. So these rituals are not performed for people who have committed heinous crime in the society. So finally, how does Arialusi apply to the dead Christian or Muslim? Here is where belief system comes. You know, African traditional system, you have a cyclical reckoning of time. You go through rituals every year, whereas in Christianity is a linear conception of time. It is appointed unto man once to die, and after that, the judgment. And therefore, you either go to heaven or that goes to hell. So what there happen is that the person who claims to be a Christian is not going to be buried as a traditional person. The person who claims to be a Muslim will not be subjected to the burial of the traditional process. So if you subscribe to God in Christianity or Allah in Islam and you die, well, it is believed that such a God in Christianity or Allah in Islam will judge you. But if someone dies as a traditional person, he or she will be subjected to the reckoning and the belief system of either reincarnating as a perfect person who comes to enjoy, or as a elusive person who has come to continue with the punishment of his previous sins, sins committed in his previous existence. Thank you so much for your questions. Thank you.
No, can you hear us? Can you hear
Hello,
us?
can you hear me, please?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, good afternoon, everybody. My question is directed to Professor Benson Igboe. It's good to see you again on this in this conference. We met at the NAGE conference in Abuja last month, I think. So,
okay.
Prof, my question is on your presentation, on your argument about the reincarnation. But now I want to ask about the potency of this tradition in the 21st century, how potent it is. Because we've seen we've seen instances where people out there go to churches to try to mediate, or to try to downplay the consequences of neglecting their ancestors. So how potent is this tradition? So what are the consequences in real time, like the real consequences that you have experienced, perhaps maybe in your fieldwork? So that's my question.
So, moderator, do I respond to that? It's okay, David. Thank you so much. You recall that in Abuja, when we met in April, we talked about the violent prayers, and like I said, we have a portion of the violent prayers that are devoted to African ancestors and African ancestral spirits, and the all kinds of spirits in African traditional religion. When somebody is not making it in quotes, what is it? You have to find out whether you go through the prophets or you go through the oracle, you play the oracle. It still boils down to the same thing, that there is something that is responsible for the non-prosperity, the poverty, the suffering, the sickness that such a person is suffering from. Yes, we may say we are in the 21st century, globalization is spread here and there, but individuals, after proclaiming, let me say this, we interviewed a professor. We met the professor in one of the prayer centers, and this is somebody in philosophy who argues in all his papers that such things do not actually exist. They are figments of one's imaginations. They are all of this. We met him and we confronted him with his writings. But here you are seeking the intervention of the pastor to deliver you from the spirit of the ancestors. So there is a kind of, how do I put it, that there is a dual response to this. People, because of they want to belong to the 21st century global world, and they want to be Christians, and they want to be Muslim, like Nicodemus in the ninth, they still patronize these prophets. They go to these native doctors, they seek for help. If you check their cars, you see all of these things there for protection. They go to the church. If you read Mollis Johnson's work he did amongst the Yoruba, there is an intersection between Christianity, Islam, and traditional religion. And don't be surprised. There is one former speaker of the House of Assembly, I wouldn't want to, is my colleague, who told me that if one of the governors in Southwest Western state in Nigeria here, was returning from the Holy Ghost service, and he met him, he was returning from Lagos, and he met him in one Babalawo's place by around 4 a.m. And he asked him, This is the Speaker of the House. This is the governor of the state. And they met in the Baba's house. And the speakers, we just watched you when Pastor Adeboye was mentioning your name there. So what are you doing here? And he also asking, what are you doing here, my speaker? And they laugh over it. And so all of these things, we may deny that in the public, but existentially, you'll find out that even in the 21st century, people patronize this. Like I said, without these forces, African Pentecostalism might not be as potent and as accepted as it is, because primarily it is to destroy the spirits of the ancestors that are believed to be responsible for the poverty, for the sickness, for the sorrow that the adherents go through. So it's still very potent, it's still active amongst the people, even though they deny it in the afternoon. Thank you, my brother.
So, again, it has something extensive that is a good bulk of my work. Concerning the names, probably because of time. When she gave birth to the first child, she called the first grandchild, called him Nnamdi. That's my father is not just available, he's around with his back. Niece or something like that. So that's one of the names, because he made mention of Onochi. Then the one that she actually felt that carried the spirit of her husband to America, she named her Afamefuna. My name will never be lost. Pointing to that hope that she was looking at, that this one will be the one to recover whatever it is. So I mentioned it's part of it. Probably because of time I didn't look at it. And then I don't know question. The host there are thinking about, I get this, which part of the cultural stuff is inherited? And are there differences? No, philosophy, the legacy, conversations, we are saying, the whole dimension, that was why I picked the theory on sense here. I say it has three elements. One is the core. The core doesn't change, it's constant. The core. And through the literary work I use, I brought out those core. For instance, one of the core I brought out is checking the behavior of the child. That's one of the core. Understand? So that core is constant, doesn't change. It overlaps every other stuff. Well, no, because it's subjective, there could be one or two changes, but they are internal. Some infiltrations, but the core is particular. So that's what we call the periphery. The periphery. So she saw that the first child, she think that the first child had that the spirit of his father. But when she breastfed me, the book was not responsible to this one. Was not carry the spirit. Immediately she saw the second child, in how that was interested in her attitude, the way she behaved. She knew that this one was come. And on the subsequent stories that followed, she actually carried a spirit of evil to bring hope and listen to. Then the boundary is the last element. Part of what I didn't say the boundary, I said the boundary is the demarcation. It actually shows that there's a space in another space. It's what holds us in this cultural system. That's what holds the incarnation in this cultural system that shows which one is external, which one is internal. Which one is external? I mean, from what he's saying now, through the term he was using, he showed how that term reacts with external stuff while staying within. That's what semiotics helps to do. You saw what are the differences? In contradiction. There's not much contradiction. There's not much contradiction. It's a belief. That was why I was pushing that. The people that believe through semiotics, the study of the symbol to a solution, that's a symbol that made us things. It is the belief that what that person believes about that particular thing, what that person actually believes about the thing. The question you raised, like you said, because I used it, Prof have actually done a vast work on it. To believe in have a choice over reincarnation. In a sense, he also answered that question, because he's talking about the belief So, someone that did bad, we didn't reincarnate. So I read in the course of, because that's not the concern of my work. I read that that person does not go, doesn't reincarnate, will be able. And yeah, no, oh, yeah, no, it's not about to as much as who does bad, a bad person, does that person actually form up? I also okay, sorry, I was not around. So, obviously, the tree on each job I came across and also the what we have seen is that there are different perspectives in Igbo's understanding of reincarnation. Those who did bad, expensive, like in the category of evil, there are categories of evil. Like,
Yeah.
for example, all the Catholics say that there are mortal and venial sins as get Igbo. Nnukwu njọ na obere njọ. Ọ bụrụ na ime nnukwu ajọ ife, if you did extreme mortal sins or extreme mortal crimes, you cannot reincarnate. You are a menace to not just the physical world, but the spiritual world. In quote in quotes, you become what you call Akali Ogoli, the spirit that hangs on trees. Yes. Spirits that hang on trees include those who were not buried well, those whose burial rites were not conducted, those whose extensive burial, because there is difference between that you weren't buried and that there are proper rites that were expected to be given to you were not fully carried out. Now, there are some crimes you might commit. The spirits will request that you go back and atone for those sins. A kind of remission. What you might, I've forgotten who made this statement. He said, conscious purgatory. In Igbo's cosmology, a conscious purgatory. You are actually subconsciously aware, but you are aware and you are taking the penance. Hence, those people may not really progress in life. Do you understand the connection? However, if you also have regret, you must reincarnate to attain enlightenment or satisfaction. So it basically varies. Then there are other parts in you that says once, whether it is the lesser evil or the greater evil, you will not reincarnate. So it differs from looking to the perspective. Yeah. Surely it has to do with your agreement with your chi. Now, some people do have greater command and agree in agreeable terms with their chi. So if, for example, I might be in so much good terms with my channel, be like, hey, nnama anakwa now, like I will translate, hey, nnama anakwa now, nka achọkwa ma ọ bụrụ na ọ batakwa na usekwu ma ifu. What your chi does, quote unquote, is he agrees because the chi does not end in the physical realm. It also transcends into the spiritual realm. So, quote unquote, I so much love my father. I would want him to come back to me. So your chi goes to your father's chi, and they agree. Once they agree, you come back. The father, comes back. Maybe the daughter or the son. And then, just like you said, they come. You see signs that your father is already here. And the reason why you must see those signs is for you to accord recognition, respect to that spirit, because of the fact that sometimes when you do not accord that respect and recognition, they die. So there are some of the things when you these issues are very extremely contested. When you, in addition to what you're saying, yes, when I was born, up to my 10th year, all our kindred believe that I am my grandfather. You understand what I say? Yes. The whole family, they accord me that respect. They say the way I talk, with so much wisdom, the way I look, that's how the man was looking. And many things. But being born in a Christian family, I come from an Orthodox background, and Anglican church. Yes.
But I am part of the evangelical movement. Do you understand? So when I come in terms with that perspective of Christianity, I told my people that I don't like this nonsense. But unfortunately, I'm regretting the whole thing now because by now they're supposed to be giving me, you understand?
Yes.
I try to respect giving me gifts and many other things. So what I'm saying generally is this, like Professor Pokalo is saying, no matter how you Christianize an Africa, you cannot take away his Africanity.
Yes. There was this syncretism.
I don't want to use the word syncretism. My supervisor, my academic mentor will say double allegiance instead.
Double allegiance.
You know what? I don't want to use the word syncretism. You understand? It's in a negative form.
Negative form.
But what I'm saying is this. The summary of all these things is that even our Christianity and our commitment to African brand of Christianity is as a result of, to some extent, this our culture has an undertone. The way we pray, I was with my brother the other day. I was sharing with him. He said, actually, I'm a priest. Likewise, yeah, I'm a priest. I'm an Anglican priest. Likewise. But I come to know that you cannot remove and separate our culture from our Christianity. I think the solution is this. Even Jesus did not attack the culture of his people. We should not be attacking our culture. Jesus came to usher in a new kingdom. He said the kingdom of his father, fine. He never attacked Abraham. He never attacked Isaac. He never attacked Jacob. Likewise, the gospel is all about preaching the good news of Jesus. It's talking about killing anybody his fault. Our answer. Who are good. Those that believe in them, fine. You say you don't believe in them. Unconsciously, you believe in them because you are praying that their spirit should leave you. Since then, the spirit has not refused to go and refused to go. You are praying that the spirit will not attack you again. The spirit is. So, generally, I'm saying that African man is an African man. And it's better that we remain original.
Yes.
Even in the midst of Christianity, let us understand that we are first of all Africans.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you so much. I mean, I would say that this is one of the best panels I've attended so far. I mean, this is how, for me, conference should be. What is the point? People cannot make the point. You give me, 3 minutes to present a paper. So I must thank the presenters for a wonderful presentation and for your contributions. Thank you so much. Thank you, Prof. Thank you, Reverend, and our brothers and sisters that made their input. I must say that I've learned a lot here today. It's also about what I've been telling my people in the village. No matter our level of education, we must always think about where we are coming from. These people, we are our progeny, we descended from them. If without them, we wouldn't be who we are today, but we are destroying the shrines and deities, destroying the sacred groups. Yet in the morning, we are in church, in the evening, we consult. So thank you so much.
Thank you so very much. Thanks for your reflections and contributions. And thank you, moderator, sir.
Yeah, thank you very much, Dr. Danladi. Thank you for standing in. Thank you, everybody.
Yeah,
I'm so happy that you guys were able to have this panel. I appreciate everyone that contributed and everyone that has a paper in the panel. So sorry, activities in school here did not allow me to take full charge. I'm still in the meeting. I just wanted to come and say thank you, everybody, to appreciate you for participating. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yes. I think the English is yes. The powerful man. No more. I think of it. No. Thank you.